you know, see what happens.
Truth or dare, Ronnie?
15 scariest games and horror movies when games turn morbid. The scariest horror films are those that terrify viewers using the most inconspicuous premises. And what could be more seemingly innocent than a simple game? However, the horror trope can quickly change a harmless game into a question of life and death. Some of the games used in horror movies usher in the evil forces, while others simply toy with the idea of survival horror. In this video, we have put together a list of some of the most terrifying games encountered in horror history, and you might want to take caution if you ever intend to play these. Before we go into our explanation, we have a very small request. If you like our content, please support us by subscribing to our channel. This is a small click for you, but for us, it means a lot. Thank you. Let's begin. Saw, Terrifying Escape Puzzles, 2004. James Wan and Lee Whannell kick-started a widely successful franchise with the first Saw movie in 2004. The non-linear narrative of the original movie soon became a trend, and Saw became known for the twisted games played on the victims by the notorious Jigsaw Killer. For instance, the movie starts off with two strangers awakening in a large bathroom, and one of them must kill the other in order to save his family. The two men have no recollection of how they got there in the first place, and escaping the confines seems unlikely. However, they soon discover that there might be a way out, but freedom will come at great costs. Can they free themselves from the clutches of this psychotic serial killer? The highlight of this movie and most other films in the franchise is the focus on their games played by the demented villain. Even winning might come at a price for the victims, and losing almost certainly means death or some horrible form of mutilation. The Jigsaw Killer derives pleasure from inflicting unspeakable pain on those who are forced by him to be a part of the game. The sequel hasn't been as good as the original, and the unique philosophy behind the mind of an apparently crazy serial killer will blow your mind. There are some solid scares in this well-written script, and even though the action takes place primarily in just two locations, you will never find the narrative monotonous. You will rarely come across such a gritty thriller, but if you ever encounter such a twisted game where failing to solve the escape puzzle might mean death, then our prayers are with you. Cube, Escape Room Games, 1997. Saw might have popularized the concept of escape puzzle rooms in horror movies, but Cube was the one who started the idea. The movie tells the story of 6 complete strangers from very different walks of life who find themselves locked up in a giant cubicle maze. Deadly traps greet them at every step, and there are thousands of colored cubic rooms around them. The diverse group of victims comprises a doctor, a math expert, an escape artist, a building designer, a cop, and a disabled man. They soon figure out that it will take their combined efforts to have a chance of escaping the maze of cubes, and playing this life or death game will also give them the answers as to why they have been imprisoned in the first place. Never did solving a puzzle have so much at stake. The deadly game in question here is a very basic escape room challenge with the added twist of certain death if one fails. The ones involved must put on their best thinking caps and use mathematics to stay ahead of the traps. Credit is due for the director Vincenzo Natali for crafting such a masterpiece on a shoestring budget and a tight schedule. He grabs your attention instantly with such a captivating premise, and the narrative is full of surprises. At one point, solving of the problem becomes way too complex, but you don't have to worry as a viewer, and you can let the players figure it out. As you can imagine, the math genius among them holds the key to their chances. Cube is one of the finest and freakiest survival horror thrillers that ever existed, and if you haven't watched it already, it is high time that you did.
Okay, wherever you go, whatever you do, it'll find you. Okay, don't tell the truth, or you die.
Truth or Dare, the Truth or Dare game, 2018. You might know Truth or Dare as an innocent, fun game with friends, but here the consequence of lying or refusing a dare is death. It all starts when a group of 6 friends heads for a vacation in Rosarito, Mexico. One of them runs into trouble and gets harassed, and a man named Carter intervenes and saves her. He befriends the group and even convinces them to join him for a party in the ruins of a mission. Later, Carter initiates a game of Truth or Dare with the group, and by By the time the game is over, they realize that they have been tricked into something sinister. Anyone who disregards the basic rules of the game will face terrible consequences, and Carter led them into a trap of this supernatural game knowingly. Can any of them survive the game with honesty and fair play? It was certainly a unique idea to put such a horrible twist on the simple truth or dare game. The stakes of the game keep getting higher, and the supernatural element keeps picking off those who fail the rules. The movie roped in a relatively unknown cast, and they did well to pull off a diverse range of characters. Not many of them were provided with solid backstories, but it did the trick nevertheless. The production values were spot on as well, and we feel that the movie gets an unfair amount of hate for no reason. We appreciate the originality of the concept and the daring efforts from the cast and crew. If you are in the mood for a different style of horror movie, and if you want to be apprehensive about playing Truth or Dare ever again in life, we strongly recommend checking this one out. As the Gods Will, 2014, Japanese children's games. This movie is based on a manga, and the story revolves around a high school student named Shun Takahata and his friends. They had the usual life of a teenager until they were forced to take part in a series of childish games. The downside, death for whoever loses the round. They have no clue about who is really behind this sinister game, but they have no choice but to try and keep winning to survive. Shun Takahata goes on winning and tries to protect his best friend, Ichika. Meanwhile, you will get to see characters like Takuru, who love the opportunity to get their classmates killed. Wait and watch till the end to witness the fate of Shun and his friend. The idea of gods playing games with humans to test their skills is quite an old one, and you will find traces in ancient Greek mythology as well. The movie does not try too hard to spoon-feed you everything, but the indications are enough for the smart ones to pick up on the real mystery. The games transformed popular children's games into a battle of death and something mortifying. This came long before the world became obsessed with Squid Game, so be prepared to be surprised by games like Red Light, Green Light. The anime fans might be familiar with the director Takashi Miike because of his illustrious career, and this movie shows yet again that he does a great job of putting manga on screen. The narrative is perfectly grim, and it is supported by some sleek cinematography. The gore hounds will not be disappointed even though the violence has been toned down in comparison to the source material. Acting is not the strongest asset of this movie, but the characters playing the main roles are quite impressive. Watch the movie only if you are prepared to handle a quirky and disturbing tale involving young people falling prey to their own losses. The Game, a tailor-made game, 1997. A game voucher might seem like a fun idea at first, but wait till you hear about what happens next. The game tells the story of a rich banker from San Francisco, Nicholas, who gets to participate in a mysterious game after his brother Conrad gifts him with a special voucher on his birthday. Nicholas had always been somewhat of a loner, and Conrad strongly suggested trying out the voucher because it would change his life. The game is conducted by a company called Consumer Recreation Services, and when Nicholas is intrigued and gives in to his curiosity by trying them out, his life takes a horrible turn. Strange things start happening in life, all of which seem to be well orchestrated, and he must win the odds thrown at him to stay one step ahead. Is this really just a game, or is it a sinister plan to destroy his life? The game in question here is tailor-made for Nicholas, and it is more of a character study than anything else. We get to see the stark changes in his behavior as the game progresses, and it brings out the best and the worst of him. Of course, the part of the game is that you cannot quit just because you want to. The creative and suspenseful writing for this one steals the show, and you get to see a star-studded cast including Michael Douglas and Sean Penn deliver a thumping performance. The story might sound a bit far-fetched at first, but once you try to put yourself in Nicholas's shoes, there is no turning back. The director David Fincher purposely makes things dark and mysterious, and the narrative gives off strong horror movie vibes without any apparent supernatural element. The narrative holds the cards close to its chest the whole time, and in the end, you will only be thankful for not having a brother like Conrad.
This is Clara.
Does she look like she's wearing a giant white wedding dress, Emily?
Ready or Not, Hide and Seek, 2019. We thought hide and seek only gets scary when one has to hide in the dark, or when one is just about to be caught. That was until we watched the movie Ready or Not, which gave the innocent game a whole new dimension. The story takes you through the journey of Grace, which starts off with warmth and affection as she marries the man of her dreams. She is eager to please her new relatives and in-laws, but soon she learns that the rituals are not over yet. She has to participate in a lethal tradition of a hide-and-seek game with a twist. Her new in-laws are going to try and hunt her down from midnight till dawn, and she must stay hidden in order to survive. The in-laws are armed to the teeth as they come after her, and it remains to be seen if she can keep herself safe in this massive mansion. The secret behind the game is as twisted as the game itself. The wealthy family is actually Satan worshippers, and they have a ritual of sacrificing the one picking the wrong card to their demon master. In return, they get to retain their wealth, and Grace has to defy all of the odds to get out of this alive. The game might have been an absolute nail-biter, but the movie wouldn't have been possible without the brilliance of Samara Weaving in the lead role. She captures the emotions beautifully, and you will feel her terror and uncertainty as she struggles to stay alive. The narrative includes some dark comedy in bits and pieces, and it substitutes the generous amounts of gore present in several of the scenes. If you look at the movie from a critical standpoint, you will realize that it is a well-made satire with a thrilling storyline. Stay away if you are even remotely squeamish, because the hide-and-seek game spills more blood than some of the slasher horror flicks that you come across. Hellraiser Puzzle Box. There are a few fans who aren't familiar with this Clive Barker classic that spawned a successful franchise relevant even today. Hellraiser is known for many things, from the twisted storyline to the gore and terror of the Cenobites, but we can't help but focus on the tiny little game that starts it all. The Lament configuration, a puzzle box. Unlike other horror movies involving games, this one actually gets dangerous if you win, which is solving the puzzle box. The puzzle box is a crucial element in almost every Hellraiser movie, and solving it summons the deadly Cenobites, demonic creatures from a hellish dimension. The solver might get the prize he desires, but there is always a heavy and painful price to pay. While the puzzle box in Hellraiser movies gets people in trouble more often than not, Kirsty Cotton in the original movie did use it wisely to escape the clutches of the demonic creatures. She struck a deal with them, allowing her to avoid being taken to the world of pleasure, pain, and suffering. Later, she also reverses the configuration to banish the Cenobites, and it works. The puzzle box in question works like a key between the two worlds, and it cannot be destroyed by any means. In the first Hellraiser movie, Kirsty Cotton tried burning the box, but it did not work out. The original movie and some amazing sequels created a rich legacy, and much of it is due to Doug Bradley, who did an amazing job as Pinhead, the leader of the Cenobites. This became a recurring appearance in the franchise, and people loved his cold-hearted approach and witty lines. Hellraiser movies are a must-watch for every horror fan. Just be careful about solving every random puzzle box that you come across.
Help!
Just calm down.
John!
You're fine.
Where are you?
Circle, Elimination Process, 2015. This movie is bound to remind you of films like Cube and Saw because of the initial setting. A group of 50 strangers wakes up in a large, mysterious chamber. They have no recollection of how they got there in the first place, but the people soon realize that they have bigger things to worry about. One of them has to die every 2 minutes, and an electrical pulse within the chamber executes them instantly. But is the choice of victims random? The ones trapped inside figure out that they can decide who would be the next one to die, and thus begins the dance of democracy, where votes determine life or death. But is there a way to stop the procession of death? We have all played the game of elimination, be it while playing tag or hide and seek. In the movie, however, the elimination game takes a whole new meaning. What does it take for someone to convince the others to choose someone else for death? The movie is surely going to blow your mind, and it involves one of the most twisted and complicated versions of elimination ever. What you will realize halfway through the movie is that the focus is not really on the constant deaths. In fact, the makers don't even make an effort to make the deaths gory or disturbing. The deeper exploration of the narrative is a dive into the depths of human psyche. You get to see the prejudices and selfishness emerge, and the movie exposes the bare shape of rotten consciousness when one is faced with certain death. You will get to see the different types of characters, but the apparently simplistic movie packs a few powerful, thought-provoking punches. Watch out for this bold and poignant drama, because you will not get too many like this. The Hunt, a hunting game. Hunting as a sport is often frowned upon and deemed controversial. But what if the ones being hunted were humans instead of animals? The Hunt shows you what that would look like, as things start off with a bizarre premise where 12 complete strangers wake up in a clearing in a remote location. There is no time to ponder how they got there, because a group of elitists has gathered in the region for their twisted sport. They will be hunting down humans for fun, but these sick, psychotic elitists will not have the hunt served to them on a platter. One of those being hunted takes the fight back to the hunters, and now it is a deadly battle for survival in the middle of nowhere. The first thing to understand while you watch this movie is that the film was not meant for cinematic greatness or grandeur. Everything about the hunt is pretty basic, and the whole project is just backed up with an intelligent script. Under the disguise of the hunting event and the fight between predator and prey, the movie offers a nice commentary on contemporary divisive politics. It makes fun of everyone caught up in the mess, and it needs to be appreciated when one dares to ridicule both sides of the coin. Among the cast, Betty Gilpin shines in her role, and as for the narrative, the political satire never gets boring or monotonous. It might be a great movie to check out if you are in the mood for some harmless fun after a long day. Stay Alive, When Video Games Become a Light and Death Battle, 2006. Have you ever wondered while spending hours on video games how things would be if the consequences in the game impacted your real life? This nightmarish concept becomes a reality for a group of teenagers who are discovering the dark side of gaming. It starts off with an individual checking out an underground game called Stay Alive with two of his friends. Once the game is over, he is shocked to find that his friends are dead, and soon he suffers the same fate, dying exactly like his character died in the game. Following this strange event, the game changes hands, and another group of friends starts playing it together. After a couple of them fall prey the same way, the others discover the horrifying truths behind the game. This apparently innocent-looking video game is actually the true story of a twisted noblewoman from the 17th century called the Blood Countess. Is there an escape from this curse, or is it all over the teenagers? Stay Alive bowled us over with its crazy concept. The idea of having to manage survival at any cost in the game because it would determine one's fate in real life is quite unique, and the movie could have done way better if the execution wasn't a tad bit lazy. That being said, the narrative does have its moments and the cast is quite convincing. The story will make you think and scare you at the same time, and this unique combination is a rare commodity in the horror market. The visuals are impressive because of good lighting and clever use of colors, and some of the jump scares are sure to get you. The element of gore is toned down considerably to get a PG-13 rating. Stay Alive might not be widely popular, but we can promise that the gamers will have a gala time watching this one. Ouija, 2014. Ouija board nightmares. It is not always the smartest thing to do to toy around with the Ouija board, and horror movies have explored the premise time and again. In this movie, we see a girl killing herself after playing with an ancient Ouija board. Later, a group of friends decides to investigate the matter and find out if indeed something paranormal took place with the board that can supposedly summon spirits. To their horror, they discover that tampering with the ancient relic has awakened some dark powers, and spirits from the other side aren't exactly playthings. The movie is not exactly extraordinary in the sense that it deals with the tried and tested topic. The lack of originality hurts the plot, but the narrative still tries to pull out a few tricks from the bag. There are a couple scary moments, although much of these terrifying bits are reliant on jump scares. The acting performances are somewhat dull, and that does hurt the cause. However, there are a few things going for this movie. The direction and cinematography are quite stellar, and the production values hide the fact that it is a low-budget effort. If you have a taste for supernatural horror, you wouldn't mind sitting through this one just for the creeps.
Would you rather electrocute yourself or...
Would You Rather? A Dark Tale on a Childish Game, 2012. Sadistic aristocrats and their lust for twisted games played on innocent victims never fail to surprise. This movie takes you through a similar story arc where a young woman named Iris is desperate for some quick money in order to treat her sick brother. The doctor treating him introduces Iris to a philanthropic aristocrat named Shepard Lambrick. The latter offers her the opportunity to win some easy money by participating in a game and winning. The offer seems too good to refuse, and she shows up at his mansion to be a part of this event. After some innocent dares during dinner, the game takes a sinister turn once they begin playing Would You Rather. Here, the guests have to make some tough choices, and as the night progresses, the game quickly turns out to be a determiner of life and death. Would You Rather is probably one of the most underrated movies on our list, and the film takes a simple plot to new proportions. The game keeps raising the stakes, and you start rooting for the protagonist because you believe in her cause. The narrative purposely skips major information on the other characters because it wants you to be invested in Iris. The underlying philosophy is quite thought-provoking because it shows how morality can be flexible under extreme circumstances. Brittany Snow is impressive in the lead role, but Jeffrey Combs steals the show as the sadistic aristocrat. We would have loved for the game to introduce some greater challenges, but it was still a thoroughly entertaining movie that deserves to be watched. Gerald's Game, an erotic game gone wrong. Erotic games can be fun and add sparks in a relationship, unless you end up in a position like Gerald's wife. Let's take it from the start. Gerald and his wife Jessie are dealing with a terrible marriage. In a last-ditch effort, they are desperate to spice up things in their relationship and decide on a weekend retreat at their secluded lakeside residence. Things are going really well with no one around to disturb them, and they have planned everything from handcuffs to wild imaginations to make things steamy. However, their kinky games soon come to an abrupt standstill when Gerald drops dead. To make things worse, Jessie is tied to a strong wooden bed in handcuffs, and there is no way for her to break free. As she sits there panicking and grieving, the long-buried demons of her past come haunting and make her crazy. What can be scarier than repressed trauma of the human mind? This movie is based on a Stephen King novel, and most people seem to agree that the adaptation is spot on. The situation is intriguing, and once you put yourself in Jessie's shoes, you quickly realize the gravity of her position. A massive part of the movie actually involves her sitting handcuffed on the bed, but the narrative never gets monotonous. Carla Gugino carried the film with her soulful performance, and even Bruce Greenwood impressed with his brief screen presence. Things get really tense at times, and the scene where Jessie frees herself from the bed is definitely not meant for the squeamish, as long as you aren't too bothered by the constant fear of isolation and immobilization that runs throughout the narrative. This movie is a must-watch for every horror fan. House on Haunted Hill, Last Man Standing, 1999. You would be surprised how many of the scariest games in horror involved twisted billionaires and their fantasies. House on Haunted Hill is no exception, and it tells the story of one such sick freak named Stephen Price and his wife Evelyn, who want to see how far one can go for a prize money of $1 million. 6 strangers of completely different and opposite characteristics are offered the challenge, and in order to win, they would have to spend a night in an infamous haunted house with a terrible past. The place used to be a formal mental institution, and it is believed that the mansion is still haunted by the inmates who were killed. After every exit in the house is sealed shut, the participants start realizing the true extent of the danger they are in. There might have been some truth to the rumors. This movie is a remake of the 1950s classic, but the plot is expanded to make things a lot creepier than before. The narrative makes good use of a genuinely creepy ambience, and the haunted house looks truly terrifying. Gore has been used to a good effect in this movie, and it is not just about mindless bloodshed. The cast lives up to the expectations, and you will soon start rooting for some and hating others. William Malone's direction does well to stray away from the shadows of the classic, and one will have very few complaints regarding the execution. The final moments of the movie, however, can be a bit of a letdown with the forced entry of the greater evil, but you cannot let that dampen your spirits. House on Haunted Hill is one of the finest in the genre of billionaires' demented games, and if you can't play it, you can at least watch. Cry Wolf, terrorized an innocent children's game of the same name. You all remember the story of the boy who cried wolf, don't you? A group of school students in an elite boarding school finds out the hard way that playing around with the Cry Wolf game might not be the best idea. Of course, their version of Cry Wolf is slightly different, but they end up with the same fate as the herder boy who cried wolf in the fables. It starts off with someone being marketed as the wolf while the others try to figure out who it could be. However, with a series of vicious murders in the school, the game takes a whole new meaning. They use the group parlor game to spread rumors about a serial killer named the Wolf at Large, and to their horror, they realize that their rumor might have some truth in it. Can they find out the real one responsible for the murders? Time is running out quickly for the students as the body count keeps rising. The problem with liars is that people stop believing them even when they are speaking the truth. That is probably the first lesson we learned after reading the story of the boy who cried wolf, and the students learn it a bit too late. This low-budget horror thriller manages to surprise the viewers with a well-knit storyline full of surprises. The director, Jeff Wadlow, proves that with a good plot and strong ambitions, the budget is never going to be much of an issue. The cast of newcomers does a pretty good job as well. For those expecting a slasher flick, be warned that this isn't one. The story thrives more on the element of mystery, and the narrative will keep you guessing the whole time. There are few genuine scares on offer, and it is unfortunate that such a great effort failed due to poor marketing and harsh reviews. As you have learned by now, games are not necessarily fun, especially if they are part of a creepy horror flick that intends to play with your sanity. Do let us know in the comments below about the scariest game for you among the ones that we listed. Also, feel free to tell us about some of the other crucial games from horror movies that we might have skipped here. And if you liked our content, don't forget to leave a like and subscribe to us if you haven't already. Have a good one and be safe. Thanks, everyone.